All
Yeah.
right, let's go ahead and get started. I know that I want to budget an hour, and then we may have some things we need to circle back around to.
Yep.
So, every person has an origin story, right? So,
Yep.
tell me about life. Before you became a pilot. I know from hearing you talk before this, you had maybe a baseball career. So
That's
let's
right.
talk about from like high school until you became a pilot.
Yeah. So I grew up, born and raised in Indiana, lived in California for 17 years in the Central Valley. Spent high school years there, um, and grew up there the most of my adult life. Um, from high school, went to college, played tennis in junior college, played pro ball, independent ball, baseball. Um, got the opportunity to go overseas to Sydney, Australia, Berlin, Germany for 3 years, to coach kids, um, play, work with different coaches and different set up different camps and whatnot. That's kind of where a lot of my later on, you'll probably ask, but a lot of the teaching side of it came from at the beginning and playing. Farmed almonds in California, had a family farm, uh, worked in the fields. Um, really got a firm understanding of what hard work and manual labor was to appreciate kind of what you have. And I'll get more into that later. That's why it kind of ties into where you come from and what you do, because it definitely plays a role in kind of how I view my career now, with how I approach it, in the jobs that I get, but just kind of how I have an overview of you know what I envision doing, but also my work ethic involved in what I do. But yeah, went overseas and played, came back, and once I played baseball for about 6 7 years, took that opportunity, traveled all around the world. Very blessed to have that opportunity to do it. And then that's pretty much at the end of that is when I started to decide that. Well, let me say this: growing up as a kid, I just loved airports. My mom told me, she said, I always knew you were going to be a pilot someday or have something to do with aviation, because every time I went to the airport, you just rolled down the window and loved smelling the jet fuel. I was like, that's pretty fair. So you couldn't pull me out of an airport as a kid. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but you just couldn't pull me out of it. I wanted to go back. I wanted to always go somewhere, and I didn't know why. It fascinated me so much, every aspect.
Well, I don't want to timestamp you too much, but were you an '80s kid? Were you a '90s kid?
So I'm 36 years old now, born in '84. So the majority of my childhood was the '90s. So I think I was 10 years old in '94. I started flying as a kid, visiting family and stuff by myself when I was 9 or 10. And things were different then, security and things like that. But yeah, mainly in '90s.
So your family would put you on a plane by yourself at 9 years old?
Yeah, I was the only child, and I would go out to see my dad. My parents were divorced when I was 4, so I'd go out to visit my dad. I'd be 9, 10 years old, just hopping on a plane, even connections. So having to get around airports and navigate my way through.
So as a kid, when they put you on the plane, did that give you sort of like special access to the cockpit? Did you get any pilots sort of showing you around?
Um, I think a couple times I did. It wasn't all the time. Sometimes I kind of look in and whatnot, and they would say, "Hey, why don't you come up?" But I did get Peyton Manning's autograph his rookie year on a flight from Indianapolis, so that was probably that was probably better than going into the cockpit.
Nice, nice. So you had an interest as a kid in airports, in aircraft. So let's talk about that first step. It sounds like after your baseball career, after farming almonds in
Yeah.
California, what was that first step into sort of that professional aviation track for you?
Yeah, so Well, to be honest, yeah, I get this question a lot. What made you, why did you want to become a pilot? Well, um, it's kind of like every question as a kid. Why do you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, or dentist? And you don't really know why because you're a kid. Later on in life, I think you can look back and kind of tie in, just like what I told you. You can kind of tie in things that um, you were interested in and different things as to why you're interested in it. And I knew all along, even from those times I was playing baseball, I always kind of thought to myself, I'm like, well, this is going to end at some point. So you know what is it exactly that I want to do? And always in the back of my mind, I didn't know whether it would be just working on an airport, being a pilot, flight attendant, you name it. I just knew that that is something I have a huge interest in, and I could definitely see myself feeling like I'm not working by working something in that field. So when it came time for me getting done with baseball, I had actually been up with a few people in my teenage years of in a small plane going around, loved it, great. It has to start somewhere. It doesn't just go from like, I'm going to pull this out of my hat and say, I'm going to go for it and try it. Or I could do that with anything, right? Being a doctor, lawyer. So I use all my previous childhood experiences knowing like, hey, this is something, aviation is something I'm definitely tied into. Um, so I went for it. I thought, you know what? I think I've been up in planes. I think I would like to go up and see if I would really enjoy getting my hands on the yoke, flying, which I've had before, but doing it more to where they're kind of letting me do it. So I got done with baseball and I thought, I'm going to go to this flight school and I'm going to check it out. I'm going to give it an honest look. I'm going to see about it. I'll tell you what, the first time I got up there from the intro flight to going up there and kind of letting them let me fly, do more things, whatever. I was sold, man. I was like, this is it. Like, I said, this is exactly what, when it comes to aviation, what I want to do. And that was kind of the start of it right there.
So I know it's been a while, but think back, sort of go back in the time machine in your head. So was it one of these things where um, you wanted to just plow through the curriculum and get through it as fast as possible, or did you have to sort of duct tape the sessions together because you had to make a living some another way? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, um, as far as knowing let me put it this way, as far as knowing if I wanted to go at it slower or faster, just making that decision, I'm somebody that I'm a results kind of person. So I kind of want to just do something and get it done, right? So I didn't really know what would be the most beneficial. As far as financially, I mean, it's tough because it's not cheap, but you know what? 4-year colleges aren't cheap either. People spend 60 to 100 to maybe $200,000 in 4 years, and they're not guaranteed a job when they get out. Now, you're not technically guaranteed a job necessarily anywhere, but in this industry, starting out, what I learned was that a lot of these schools were offering you a job to instruct because they knew that was the way to build the hours. So that really stuck out to me. So I ended up taking out a loan, and it was very difficult because I don't like debt. Um, I don't like to feel like I have to make payments. But I realized that, this isn't a debt, it's an investment. This is a career. And that's what I went into it. So I also want to preface that by saying when I made that decision, it wasn't a decision where I thought, I just want to do this for fun. I made the decision like I want to do this as a career. And if I'm gonna do that, this is an investment. It's not just a debt. And that mindset, to be honest with you, I've talked to multiple people, students, people that are looking to do it, and I've told them the same thing. So I went about it that way. I took out a loan and I started with the ATP flight school. And that's where I did it up in Sacramento.
Excellent. So fast forward, what's it like being an airline pilot? I mean, if somebody sort of fast forwarded through that part of your interview and wanted just to find out from a pilot What's it like?
Um, I'm a straight shooter, man. I don't feel like I work a day in my life. Like I don't. It's too easy, man. I love it. I mean, there's not there. You couldn't. Well, outside of Major League Baseball, you couldn't pay me to do anything else, man. It's just now I say that the road to getting there. It's not a hard road. It's not an easy road. It's just any job you do, you kind of have to pay some dues. I tell people this all the time. I say, you're not going to get out of college and graduate and become a CEO. You're going to work your way up. I mean, you might get lucky along the way, and skip a few ranks, but you're not going to go from getting your 4 years done being a CEO. So a lot of the things in between, it takes a little bit of effort. Man, the airlines are great. I mean, I say that as in I think you appreciate it more when you go through those types of jobs and work your way up. You really appreciate it more. It's a lot harder to work for than people can really understand.
Yeah, it's a long ways from forming almonds, right?
It is, but the work. That's why I tell you the work ethic part of it. That's why I kind of talked about that. Looking back on what I did and how and appreciating how my parents and family, wanted me and made me work in a way, in a manual labor way, really, I think kind of solidify that work ethic as far as starting a career. It's not going to just go from, like I said, graduating to CEO. You got to put your time in. So that aspect of it really stuck with me all the way through.
So we're over a year since the pandemic hit. Obviously, we're in a different universe now, right? And so let's talk a little bit about the current industries, the current aviation industry. So, I don't know how things are with with the airline you fly for, but do you see jobs for pilots starting to sort of open up now? Do you see the momentum going back towards hiring pilots?
Yeah, everybody's back to hiring now. If you take the last year until now, yeah, I mean, it was a slowdown. Obviously, they told people not to fly, and for a very understandable reason. When that happens, you're going to get a slowdown. The airlines and the aviation industries didn't slow down because they made bad financial decisions. They slowed down because told people not to fly. And that's a big part of it. And I really emphasize that because people that aren't in the aviation industry may not fully understand that. We were in a pilot shortage before all this happened, and we're still in it. It hasn't gone away. It was basically just a plug put into the drain, and now that plug's being released. It never went anywhere. The aviation industry right now we're back at 100% as of May. So we were at, let me put it this way, back in May of last year, we were operating at 10% of our normal schedule.
Wow.
I worked for Republic Airways, and we had about roughly, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was about 165 out of 220 planes parked, not doing anything. I think we have every single one of those planes back on the line as of this next month, and probably had most of them back for the last 2 months. It hasn't stopped. The shortage just kind of got, kind of paused, because, people knew, the airlines and the companies knew, hey, we're going to have to just weather this. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it wasn't because they made bad financial decisions though.
Interesting. So the industry's healthy. They're just looking for pilots.
Yeah, and I, another thing I'll say about that too is 9/11 was a different event, completely different event. It kind of had an effect of furloughs and people losing their jobs, but I think, and I believe, let's see, 2001, I was in high school, so I wasn't in the aviation industry to know the ins and outs, but it was kind of a different, it was a different effect. That was more tied to the financial issues of the companies, where this is not. This is more of just, hey, don't fly for health reasons. And the airlines were just thriving. Aviation companies were thriving. But the companies right now are, they're hiring. They're hurting for pilots. I mean, we're eating through our reserves that we have like crazy, and people are getting called for extra flying. So it's back to what it was.
It's exciting. It's exciting. So we're going to sort of transition into the advice column portion of the discussion. So what advice would you give someone who's just getting into their flight training?
Well, there's two different. The way I look at it, there's two different types of routes that you want to take, and I've been asked this a lot of times. Should I go to a 4-year, or should I just go to a flight school and get my hours? And I say to them, well, do you want to fly for a living? Is that what your goal is, and to get your hours and fly for a living? And some may say yes, and I say, then my advice to you is to go get your hours as fast as you can and get a job. Some people say that they want to go to a 4-year and get a degree. Then, hey, that's what you should do. Go get your degree if that's more important, and do that. The advice I have for people going in, that's usually the first question I get, because I instructed for over 2 years, and I talked to a lot of people going into it and whatnot. The biggest piece of advice going into it, I mean, boy, we could be here for a long time. There's a lot. I mean, I would say that attention to detail, being patient. I mean, these are one-line things here. Boy, there's just, that's a pretty big question. If you're going into flight training, you got to know that there's going to be ups and downs. I mean, there's times where I got through training halfway through my private, and I'm like, man, this just is not for me. Like, I feel like I'm terrible. I can't fly the plane. I can't learn things. Like, I'm having to do these things over. And it happens. You are going to ride some valleys. You're going to go through training, feel like, man, this is not for you. But trust me, it is for you. You just have to weather the storm, put your nose down, and realize that you can strive for perfection, but perfection's never going to get reached. You have to go in with that kind of attitude. You have to make sure that you do things very methodically. Aviation is the industry where you get into jobs. Professionalism, especially where I'm at, is very important. Being able to work with others, being able to have a good attitude with others. I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but it's very important, because the way the industry is right now, you can see yourself going from private to commercial and becoming a flight instructor, and that time will pass because there's so many jobs out there, instructor jobs, other jobs, that when that time comes where you hit 500, 600, 700 hours and you want to get a job in a crew position, you really have to understand what professionalism is, being able to work with others, having a good attitude. That is a huge part of it. I mean, when you get to a certain point where you can fly a plane, that's great. They look at me and they're like, well, we already know you can fly a plane. Are you somebody that I want to fly with and be around for 4 days on the road? And that, believe it or not, is a huge part of this industry.
Yeah, that sort of dovetails into sort of a follow-up question is what would you tell the 20-year-old version of yourself now? Like, what would you tell you if you ran into your first day of flight school? What would you tell yourself?
It's a process. And the reason why I say that is because it's very real. You can go through training. You can go through every ounce of training, and depending on the route you take, whether you do it fast or slow. I did it fast. I got 8 ratings in 10 months. I did not work. I did not have, I mean, I was at the school 6 days a week, flying 4 to 5 of those days, studying 4 hours a day. It's a grind, and you have to mentally prepare yourself and just know that when you're going into it, it's going to be like that. It's very easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole and think, man, this just isn't for me. I saw people, fail out. I saw people drop out. It's because I could see in them that they weren't mentally prepared and ready to think, hey, man, this is a grind, and it really is for you. It's just you have to know that going into it, just have an open mind. Don't think that one bad day is make or break what you're trying to do. It's not. I mean, I'll tell you, I have had 1,000 bad days in this industry, and there's still not anything else I would ever choose I'd want to do differently. So it can be mentally grueling, and I don't say that to scare anybody away. Anything is mentally grueling. 4 years of college is mentally grueling. Anything is. It's just, I think when people get into the physiological factors of flying, it's not the typical type of job, maybe just like a doctor or something else. People think, well, I'm not cut out for it. Well, you are. It's a grind.
Yeah, it sounds like you were able to lean on your sports background a little bit, because you knew you just had to trust the process, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That, again, work ethic. That's a huge part of it, because if you know that you have to work hard for something, that kind of eases that mental pressure a little bit, because you're not going to go into it thinking, oh, I had a bad day. Oh, maybe it's just not for me. Well, anything you have to work hard. It doesn't come easy, right? So you have to really put your nose down and push those bad days off to the side and realize you got a lot more better ones coming ahead of you.
Yeah, you got to get those reps in, right?
Yeah.
All right, so a bit of a lightning round here. We're sort of reaching the end here. So just quick hitting questions. I love the fact that you were able to dig in on the previous questions, but biggest misconception about being a pilot?
Biggest misconception about being a pilot. Oh boy.
Like things that you hear people say and you're like, yeah, that's not even close.
Biggest misconception that, boy, I honestly don't know of many misconceptions. Maybe if you get into like the airlines and things, that they're maybe full of themselves. I mean, there's a lot of guys I fly with that are just the most down to earth guys. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know of too many misconceptions. I would say that that's a tough one. I don't know. That is a tough one.
Here's one I hear all the time. Or, I'm not in the flight industry. I know as much about it. I know more about it now just from talking to you. But I always looked at these guys with the roll-on, the roll-away carriers walking in their uniforms. I'm like, that they look like generals in the army. They look like they're from the military.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say a big that's actually a good one right there. You made me think about something. I think the biggest misconception. This is actually very true. I don't know why I didn't think about this. People think that in order to go to the airlines or to work a crew job, like they've come from the military. Because I get the question all the time. Hey, did you find them? You must have flown in the military. Nope, civilian. Went to a local flight school and got my hours, and here I am. And maybe that was the case, years ago, but it's changed 180-degree turn.
All right. Favorite thing about being a pilot?
Well, working in the airlines, I get 16 days off a month. So I work half the month. Honestly, that, and I love traveling. I love being around people. You have to, in order to do this kind of job, some people prefer cargo because they don't have to be around people. I love being around people. traveling, having a lot of days off, and the job is it's like flying a video game, man.
Nice, nice. Least favorite thing about being a pilot?
When you actually have to work for your money. And that's happened. You know, you're not prone to not having emergencies, not prone to having things go wrong. And when those things happen, they happen. And you've got to have ice in your veins sometimes. And you got to have a very calm demeanor about yourself, make good decisions. And those are days where you work more for your money, and they're not fun, but that's, you know, we get paid to do that. We don't get paid to take off and land. We get paid to handle with all the problems.
Nice. Best city for a layover and why?
Ooh, Key West. I like warm weather. I like the beach. I don't have to pay for a $700 hotel room. It's free. Just a lot of cool places to go there and hang out and you know, enjoy the warm weather, especially during the winter when it's 20 degrees in Indiana.
Best movie about flying or being a pilot?
Best movie, wow. I would say that, I mean, Top Gun's my favorite, man. Yeah, Top Gun's the one. I actually know somebody that was in Top Gun, so that kind of adds on to a little bit. But yeah, I think that one's probably my top.
All right. Steve, any parting shots? Anything that you'd like to leave anybody that watches this or listens to this with?
Yeah, you know, I get a lot of people, you know, thinking that aviation is a dying industry. I think there's a lot of people that think that from back in the day when you did see a lot of military pilots and not a lot of people getting hired, they think you don't get paid very much. It's not. It's honestly one of the best industries, and I'm not just saying this because I like my job, but it's one of the best industries you can get in. Whether or not you think that it's you don't get paid a lot. People don't get paid a lot out of college, right? When they get done. It's a great industry. I mean, even when I worked those jobs I didn't really care for, I never felt like I was working a day in my life. Don't discredit giving it a shot. If there's any part of wondering whether or not it's for you, just take that leap of faith. Just go out there and get that first flight and do another one. Do not ever think of it as being a debt. It's not a debt. It's 100% investment into your career. And I'm telling you, this industry is not going anywhere. There's going to be thousands and thousands. I mean, I can give you numbers right now. 170,000 airline pilots needed over the next 20 years. I mean, there's only, I don't know the statistic. I think there may only be like 250,000 pilots with their ATP rating right now. Think about that number. I mean, the industry is not going anywhere. Do not look at it like a debt. You know, I almost talked myself out of it. I'm so glad I didn't.
Well, Steve Caswell, I appreciate your time. Hopefully we can maybe catch up on down the road.
Sure.
But
Charleston's another good overnight. I do like that one.
Well, hopefully one day when you're on the ground there, we can have you over at a craft.
Sure.
And,
I'd love to
have a craft beer in one
Yes.
hand and a nice steak or a meal on the other. Thanks for your time, man.
Man, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me. I really, truly, honestly care about people and getting into this industry. It's awesome. I really love helping people, so I'm perfectly thrilled to be able to do this because we need more people in this industry. It's a lot of fun, and I hope everybody takes this. I don't know it all, but take it that I'm a very down to earth, straight from the heart, straight shooter. That they'll take a lot of this and really take it hard when they make their, think about making their decision to take that lead.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks,
Mike.
Nice seeing you, man. I'll see you soon. All right.
Right.
Okay. Bye.